Life often teaches us in subtle ways that we cannot rely on others to define who we are. A child is not born to fulfill a parent's unfinished dreams. A partner is not meant to carry the weight of our happiness. Friends, family, and loved ones walk beside us for a while. Yet each of them carries their own journey, their own lessons, their own destiny. The central truth of today's reflection is simple but profound. Do not make another person the purpose of your life. The invitation is to return to yourself, to discover the quiet strength that has always been within. Welcome to Moonlight Temple. Here, we explore timeless Buddhist teachings and Zen wisdom in a way that feels gentle, clear, and deeply human. Tonight's journey will offer more than comforting words. It will give you stories to remember, insights to awaken understanding, and simple practices to apply in daily life. These are not distant ideals, but living truths you can carry into your relationships, your family, and the tender space of your own heart. So, let me ask you softly, if tomorrow the one you lean on were to walk away, would you still be able to live fully? This question is not meant to cause fear, but to open a doorway. Stay with me, and together we will walk through it. If you feel nourished by these teachings, please support Moonlight Temple by subscribing and sharing, so this gentle light may reach many hearts. There is a simple story told in the spirit of the Buddha's teachings. Imagine a man who has been swept away by a river. The current is strong, the waters unpredictable, and in his panic he reaches out and clings desperately to a floating log. His arms tighten around it, his body pressed close, trembling with fear. He believes with all his heart that if he lets go, he will surely drown. The log becomes not only his safety, but his very reason to stay alive. He convinces himself that without this piece of wood, he cannot survive. Time passes, and yet something curious begins to happen. The log, though offering some comfort, also holds him back. It drifts aimlessly in circles, caught in eddies, and the man drifts along with it. He sees the shore not far away, a place of rest, warmth, and safety. He longs to step upon solid ground, yet he dares not loosen his grip. His fear whispers that he is too weak, too small, too dependent on the log to swim to freedom, so he clings harder. His arms ache, his body grows weary, but still he will not release. And then, in a moment of quiet clarity, something shifts. He notices that the water, though swift, has also been carrying him gently all along. He realizes that his own body is not helpless. He remembers that he can float, he can move, he can swim. He loosens his hold just slightly, and the log drifts a little away. At first, his heart races, fear surges up, but then a new strength rises from within. He takes a breath, allows the water to support him, and slowly, stroke by stroke, he begins to move toward the shore. To his surprise, the river holds him, does not betray him. His own arms, his own effort, his own trust in the present moment carry him forward, and before long, his feet touch the earth again. The story is simple, yet it mirrors our own lives. How often do we cling to another person the way this man clung to the log? How often do we believe that without someone else's presence, attention, or approval, we cannot survive? Perhaps we cling to a child, hoping their achievements will become our pride. Perhaps we cling to a partner, believing their love defines our worth. Perhaps we cling to parents, friends, teachers, or even society's praise, making them the reason we keep going. Like the man with the log, we wrap our identity around another person, terrified that if they leave, if they change, if they drift away, our very life will collapse. But the Buddha's wisdom reminds us gently, everything in this world is impermanent. Just as rivers flow, people's lives flow according to their own karma, their own causes and conditions. No one can remain exactly as we wish forever. To build our entire sense of self upon another person is to create inevitable suffering. We suffer because we demand permanence in what is always changing. We suffer because we cling to the log, forgetting that the shore is not beyond reach. Let us pause here and breathe with this image. Imagine yourself holding on to someone or something with that same desperate grip. Feel the tension in your arms, the fear in your chest, the ache in your heart. Now imagine what it would be like to loosen just a little. Not to reject the person, not to stop loving, but to release the belief that you cannot live without them. Feel the water beneath you, the current of life itself, carrying you forward. Notice how your own breath, your own awareness, begins to support you. This is the art of letting go. Not abandonment, not indifference, but trust in the strength already within you. The man in the story did not drown when he released the log. In truth, he began to live. Likewise, when we stop making others the sole purpose of our existence, we do not lose them. We discover ourselves. Love remains, but it becomes lighter, freer, less tangled in fear. Relationships transform. Parents can love their children without imprisoning them with expectations. Partners can love each other without demanding the impossible, guarantee of forever. Friends can walk together without binding one another in chains of need. It is like letting a bird rest on your open palm. The bird may stay, or it may fly away, but your hand remains open, peaceful, steady. The Buddha once said that clinging is the root of suffering. When we cling, we confuse love with possession, compassion with control. The log seems to save us, yet it also keeps us trapped in the middle of the river. But when we release, when we discover the capacity of our own heart and mind, the river itself becomes our support. The very life we feared becomes the life that carries us home. Consider this truth. The people we hold on to are themselves clinging to their own logs. Each person has fears, wounds, and lessons of their own. If we demand that they exist only for our security, we add weight to their journey and prevent them from discovering their own strength. Just as we must let go, we must also allow them to let go of us. Then we can walk side by side, not as chains for one another, but as companions in freedom. Sometimes, letting go feels like death. The man must have felt he was losing everything when he loosened his grip on the log. But the paradox is that only through that release could he be reborn into freedom. In the same way, when we let go of our insistence that others fulfill our emptiness, something within us is reborn. We find joy not because others stay, but because we discover the wholeness of our own being. This is not loneliness, it is true peace. Imagine again the river. The man who once trembled on the log now swims calmly. He may still use the log at times, resting when he is tired, but he no longer clings as if his life depends on it. The log becomes a support, not a prison. In this way, the people in our lives can remain sources of joy, love, and comfort, but we do not burden them with the impossible task of being our entire reason for existence. We love them because they are, not because they must, complete us. This teaching touches every relationship. In family life, it means parents respect that children have their own path, their own karma, their own future. A child's happiness or pain is not the proof of a parent's success or failure. In love, It means a partner is not a possession but a fellow traveler. To hold them tightly in fear of loss is to suffocate the relationship, but to release with trust is to allow love to breathe. In friendship, it means we do not demand constant affirmation, but appreciate the simple presence when it is there. And in society, it means we do not live to please every opinion, but act from the clarity of our own conscience. The story of the man and the log is a mirror. Each of us has logs we cling to, a person, a role, a status, even an idea of who we must be. We believe these are our life rafts, but in truth they keep us circling in the middle of the river. Freedom does not come from finding the perfect log. Freedom comes from trusting the river, trusting our own ability to let go, to float, to swim toward the shore of wisdom. The Buddha encouraged us to turn inward, to discover the refuge within. He reminded us that no external person, object, or situation can be the ultimate purpose of our lives. We are invited to awaken to our own breath, our own awareness, our own potential for compassion. In this awakening, we find that we can love others more deeply because we no longer suffocate them with need. We become like the man who finally reached the shore, free, grounded, and grateful. So as you listen tonight, let the image of the man and the log remain in your heart. Feel the truth it carries. Clinging is suffering, letting go is freedom. And remember the question from earlier. If tomorrow the one you lean on were to walk away, could you still live fully? The answer lies not in fear, but in awakening to the truth that you are already whole. Others may walk beside you, enrich you, inspire you, but they are not your foundation. Your foundation is here, in your own mindful presence, in the peace that arises when you trust life as it is. This is the doorway the Buddha offered, not to reject the world, not to withdraw from love, but to embrace life with open hands, to let go of the desperate clinging, and in doing so, to find a love and freedom that no one can take away. Chapter 1. The path of each person is unique. Part 1. Teaching on non-self, dependent origination, and individual karma. In the stillness of the night, when the world is quiet and the mind is soft enough to listen, a timeless truth begins to emerge. The Buddha spoke of this truth not as a dogma or a philosophy to cling to, but as a mirror held up to the heart. He reminded us again and again that every being carries their own path, their own story, their own karmic thread, woven through the tapestry of existence. To imagine that another person belongs to us, or that they must fulfill our expectations, is to close our eyes to this vast and intricate weave. The teaching of non-self, or anatta, is often misunderstood. People hear the words, "there is no self," and feel confused, even frightened. But what the Buddha pointed toward is not the denial of existence, but the liberation from the illusion of ownership. We live most of our lives saying, "This is mine, this is me, this is who I am," and in that possessiveness we suffer. Non-self is the gentle reminder that what we call I is in fact a flow of conditions, body and mind, thoughts and feelings, all arising and fading moment by moment. Just as a flame depends on oil, wick, and air, so too do we depend on countless causes. And because this is true for us, it is true for everyone we love. A child, a partner, a friend, or even a stranger cannot be possessed. They are a stream of causes and conditions, unfolding in ways we may never fully see. Dependent origination deepens this vision. It shows us that nothing appears in isolation. Every joy, every sorrow, every twist of fate emerges from an endless chain of conditions. A seed grows because of soil, water, sunlight, and time. A human life unfolds because of past actions, present choices, and countless unseen influences. We cannot hold another person still any more than we can hold the river from flowing. The attempt to do so is like clutching at clouds. They dissolve even as we reach out. Karma, too, is personal and unique. It is not punishment, nor is it reward. Karma is simply the natural echo of our actions, speech, and thoughts. Each being walks with the weight and lightness of their own karma, just as each traveler carries their own pack along the road. The Buddha never told us we could live another person's karma for them, nor that another could carry ours. To try is to confuse compassion with control. We can guide, we can inspire, we can offer love, but we cannot live their lessons. When we forget these truths, we suffer. A parent who believes my child must succeed to prove my worth will inevitably face heartbreak when the child chooses a different road. A partner who clings to my beloved must never change, must always love me in this exact way, will suffer when the winds of impermanence blow. A friend who demands constant attention will suffer when life pulls the other in new directions. We tie ropes of ownership around those we love, but ropes always fray, and when they snap, the pain cuts deep. The teaching of non-self offers another way. To see that there is no permanent me and mine is to open into vastness. Instead of imprisoning others with our expectations, we honor their freedom to walk their own path. Instead of demanding they be the source of our happiness, we realize happiness can arise within us, independent of circumstance. Instead of fearing change, we begin to welcome it as the heartbeat of existence. This is not a cold teaching. It is not detachment in the sense of apathy. On the contrary, it is the deepest compassion. Imagine loving someone not because they fulfill your needs, but simply because they are. Imagine releasing the chains of "you must," and instead whispering silently, "May you be free, may you be whole, may you find your way." This is the love the Buddha pointed to. It is the love of open hands, not clenched fists. It is the love of a sky that lets clouds drift freely across it, never trying to pin them in place. When we reflect on our lives, we may see how often we have resisted this teaching. We have said, "My partner is mine, they must stay." We have thought, "My child is mine, they must make me proud." We have assumed, "My parents are mine, they must never die." And when reality proved otherwise, our hearts broke. The truth of impermanence and karma did not betray us. It simply revealed itself. The betrayal came from our refusal to see what was always there. Nothing belongs to us, not even our own body, not even our own breath. This realization is not meant to depress us. It is meant to free us. If nothing is ours to hold, then nothing can truly be taken away. We may grieve when loved ones change or leave or die, but we grieve within the vastness of understanding, not the prison of denial. We may love deeply, but we love without the burden of ownership. This is a love that does not suffocate, a love that does not fear change, a love that is resilient because it is rooted in reality. The Buddha's own life reflected this teaching. He left behind a palace, a wife, a child, not out of coldness, but because he saw that clinging to them as possessions would blind him to the truth. Later, when he met his son again, he embraced him not as "my child who must fulfill me," but as another being on the path. In this way, the Buddha demonstrated that the deepest love is the love that respects another's journey. As we listen to these words, perhaps memories arise, times when we demanded too much of another, times when we tied our worth to their actions. we can meet these memories with compassion, not judgment. We can see that we acted out of fear, out of the illusion of self and ownership, and we can also see that we are free to begin again. At any moment, we can release the rope, let the river flow, and choose love that liberates rather than binds. To walk the path of non-self, dependent origination, and karma is to walk the path of humility. It is to acknowledge that life is greater than our control. It is to honor the mystery that each being carries. We may walk together, but each step is our own. No one can walk for us, and we cannot walk for them. And yet, this very independence is what makes our companionship beautiful. Imagine two lamps, each shining on its own, yet together illuminating more than either could alone. They do not merge into one flame, nor do they demand the other burn in a certain way. They simply shine. So too, may we shine. May we honor the truth that our loved ones are not extensions of ourselves, but unique travelers. May we remember that our task is not to shape them to our will, but to awaken within ourselves. And may this awakening allow us to love them more deeply, with hands open, hearts wide, and eyes clear. The teaching is gentle, but it is also firm. Clinging to the illusion of ownership is suffering. Letting go into the reality of non-self is freedom. Dependent origination reminds us that we are all interconnected, yet never possessed. Karma reminds us that each must live their own lessons. And love, when infused with these truths, becomes the most tender and liberating force. As you breathe now, let the words settle like leaves upon a quiet pond. Notice the ripples of your own expectations, the ways you may have tried to make others the purpose of your life, and then notice the stillness beneath. In that stillness, feel the possibility of another way. A way where you can love without clinging, guide without controlling, and honor without owning. This is the way the Buddha pointed toward. This is the way of peace. You are listening to a gentle teaching from the Moonlight Temple series. Wisdom drawn from ancient Buddhist roots, brought to life with care and presence. To fully receive the heart of these teachings, I invite you now to pause, soften the edges of your day, let your body rest, take in a slow, quiet breath, and exhale into stillness. Allow your awareness to return, not to the past, not to the future, but to this very moment. Nothing else is required. Just your presence. If this offering has brought you a moment of peace, we gently invite you to support this journey by subscribing to the Moonlight Temple, sharing these teachings, or simply returning again when your heart needs rest. Every small act of presence helps this temple of silence grow. Part 2. The Story of Patakara. There is an old story preserved in the Buddhist tradition, a story of one woman's grief and her awakening through loss. Her name was Patakara. For many generations her life has been remembered, not because it was free from sorrow, but because her sorrow became the very doorway to truth. Listening to her story, we are invited to see more clearly the fragile and precious nature of our own lives, and to recognize that every being must walk a path uniquely their own. Patakara was once a woman of beauty and comfort. She came from a respected family, surrounded by the assurances of wealth and care. Yet as life often does, her path led her into trials she could not have foreseen. In her youth she fell in love, deeply and passionately, with a man whom her family did not approve of. She left the safety of her home, following her heart, determined to make a life with him. This choice already marked a turning point. She stepped into the unknown, guided by love but also by the inevitability of karma, weaving her destiny in ways neither she nor anyone else could fully control. Her life with him was not easy. They had little wealth, but they had each other. In time she bore children, and with them came the tender joys and fierce worries of motherhood. Like all parents, she longed to protect them, to guard them from every harm. Her entire heart was wrapped around their small lives. She believed, as so many of us do, that her purpose was bound to them, that her identity as mother and wife would give her lasting security. But impermanence waits for no one. One day, while traveling, Patakara's husband was bitten by a snake and died suddenly before her eyes. Her heart broke, but she clung to her children, telling herself she must live for them. They would be her reason, her purpose. Yet life, in its unyielding truth, brought even deeper sorrow. As she journeyed on, seeking to return to her family, one of her children drowned in a river while she struggled to carry both across. In her panic, she placed the older child safely on the far bank, then turned back for the younger. But in the moments of her absence, an eagle swept down and carried the older child away. She watched helplessly as both her beloved children were lost, one to the water, one to the sky. Imagine the silence that followed. Imagine a mother's arms suddenly empty, her heart shattered beyond words. She wandered in madness, her mind unable to hold the weight of such loss. As if this were not enough, when she finally approached the city where her family lived, she learned that her parents and brother had died in a sudden calamity, the collapse of their home. In the span of a few days, Patakara had lost husband, children, parents, and brother. Every bond that had defined her, every relationship she had clung to, was torn away. She wandered the streets in despair, naked and wild with grief, her mind broken. People avoided her, pitied her, feared her. She was called mad, cursed by fate. Yet her suffering was not madness alone. It was the human heart laid bare, stripped of all illusions of permanence and control. She was a mirror for all who saw her, reflecting the vulnerability of life itself. It was in this state that Patakara encountered the Buddha. He did not turn away from her, nor did he scorn her madness. He looked upon her with the deepest compassion, seeing not only her grief but the seed of awakening hidden within it. His gaze was steady, his presence like a calm ocean in which her storm could begin to settle. She fell before him, pouring out her anguish, crying that her life was ruined beyond repair, that she had lost everything. And the Buddha, in his gentle way, spoke the truth that no one else had dared to speak. He told her that loss is not her curse alone, but the nature of all life. He reminded her that all who are born must one day die, that all who come together must one day part. He did not deny her sorrow, but he placed it in the vast context of impermanence. Patakara, he said softly, you are not alone in your suffering. All beings share this law. Just as the rain falls on all houses, death and separation visit every family. These words pierced her heart, not as cruelty but as medicine. In that moment, she began to see her pain, not as personal punishment, but as part of the universal truth of impermanence. Her mind, once shattered, found clarity in the recognition that she was not singled out by fate. She was simply living the truth that all must live, and in this realization, her madness gave way to insight. She bowed before the Buddha, tears still on her face, but now they were tears of release, not despair. She asked to follow his path, to dedicate her life to the practice of understanding and compassion. In time, Patakara became one of the most respected nuns in the community of disciples. She was remembered not as the woman who lost everything, but as the woman who found wisdom through loss. Her teaching to others was simple. All things are subject to change. Do not cling, for clinging leads to suffering. recognize the fragility of life, and let that recognition soften your heart, open your compassion, and deepen your practice. The story of Patakara is not meant to frighten us, nor to say that love is futile. Rather, it reminds us that love must be grounded in reality. If we love as if people will never change, as if they will never leave, as if they exist only to fulfill us, then we are bound to break when impermanence reveals itself. But if we love with awareness, knowing that each being carries their own karma, their own fragile lifespan, then our love becomes tender and wise. We hold them gently, cherish the moments we share, and release them when the time comes, knowing that they were never truly ours to keep. Think of your own life for a moment. Who have you held onto as if they were the very ground beneath your feet? A partner, a child, a parent, a friend. Consider how easily we forget that they too are subject to birth and death, joy and sorrow, choice and destiny. When we demand that they remain forever, we set ourselves against the flow of life. But when we honor their impermanence, when we acknowledge that their path is separate from ours, we begin to taste the freedom that Patakara discovered. Her story is also a reminder that no matter how deep our grief, awakening is still possible. Even in the ashes of loss, a seed of wisdom can sprout. The Buddha did not take away her pain, but he showed her how to see within it the universal truth, and in seeing that truth, she found liberation. We too can find this liberation, not by avoiding sorrow, but by recognizing its place in the great pattern of existence. Patakara's life whispers to us, do not take your loved ones for granted. Do not assume they are here to complete you. Cherish them, yes, love them deeply, but do so with the awareness that their journey is their own. When they laugh, rejoice with them. When they suffer, hold them with compassion. When they change, honor their growth. And when they leave, whether by choice or by death, release them with gratitude for the time you had together. This is not indifference, it is the most profound form of respect. As we listen to her story, perhaps we feel a stirring within our own hearts. Perhaps we remember those we have lost, or those we fear losing. Let the sorrow arise, but do not drown in it. Let it remind you of impermanence, and let impermanence remind you to love more wisely. Life is fragile, and because it is fragile, it is infinitely precious. The Buddha once said that just as all rivers eventually flow to the ocean, so too all lives eventually flow toward death. To resist this is to fight against the current, but to understand it is to find peace within the flow. Patakara's awakening was not the end of grief, but the transformation of grief into wisdom. She learned that the path of each person is unique, and that no amount of clinging could alter the truth of impermanence. Let us hold her story in our hearts, not as a tragedy, but as a lamp. It lights the way for us to see more clearly, to loosen our grip on those we love, and to honor their freedom. In honoring their freedom, we find our own. Just as Patakara stepped from madness into clarity, so too can we step from fear into wisdom. The law of impermanence is not cruel, it is simply the nature of things. And within this law, if we are willing to see it, lies the possibility of a love that liberates. So may we remember, each person's path is their own. Each being carries their own karma, their own journey, their own destiny. We cannot walk it for them, and they cannot walk ours. But side by side, for however long conditions allow, we can walk together with open hearts. And when the time comes to part, we can release one another with peace, trusting that the river of life carries us all toward awakening. Part 3. the story of the son who chose his own way. In the time of the Buddha, there lived many young men and women who felt the stirring of awakening in their hearts. Among them was a young man born into a family of deep tradition and devotion. His parents loved him dearly, and like so many parents across the world and across time, they carried within themselves many dreams for his future. They wanted him to carry the family name, to marry, to raise children, to inherit land and responsibility, to honor them with worldly success. Their love was sincere, but their love was also heavy with expectations. The young man, however, felt another call. He listened to the words of the Buddha and felt them resonate like the sound of a bell in his chest. Each teaching about impermanence, suffering, and liberation rang true. He looked at the world around him, the struggles, the endless cycle of desire and disappointment, and something inside whispered, "This is not the whole story. There is another way." One day he went to his parents and expressed his wish to become a monk. The words fell like stones in their hearts. They could not imagine letting go of their only son, the one they had raised with such care, the one in whom they had placed their hopes. His father was stern, insisting that duty to family came before all else. His mother wept, begging him not to leave her. Their sorrow was real, and their fear was clear. If he walked away, they believed they would lose everything. But the young man did not make this choice out of coldness or rebellion. He was not rejecting his parents, nor was he despising the bonds of family. He simply understood that the deepest gift he could give them was not a life lived according to their wishes, but a life lived in the truth he had discovered. To ignore the call of awakening would have been to betray his own path, and in betraying his path, he could never truly bring them peace. So, despite their protests, he chose to leave. With humility and reverence, he bowed to them, asking for their forgiveness, asking for their blessing, though he knew they were not ready to give it. With tears in his eyes, he walked away, carrying nothing but a robe and a bowl, yet carrying within him the seed of liberation. The parents were heartbroken. They spoke of him as lost, as dead to the family. They felt abandoned, rejected, humiliated. Their neighbors whispered, "How could a son leave his parents in such a way?" Their sorrow hardened into resentment, and for years they refused even to hear his name. But life has its way of softening even the hardest hearts. Time passed, and as the seasons turned, the news of their son's transformation began to reach them. They heard stories from travelers, tales of a monk whose presence was serene, whose wisdom was clear, whose compassion touched everyone he met. They heard that he lived without greed, without hatred, without delusion, and that his very life was an offering of peace. Slowly, curiosity stirred. Could this really be their son? Could the boy who had once played in their courtyard now be a teacher of the Dharma? Eventually, they gathered the courage to go and see him. They approached not as proud parents, but as weary seekers. When they arrived, they saw a monk seated in stillness, his eyes calm, his demeanor radiant with peace. And in that moment, they recognized him, not as their possession, not as the child who owed them his life, but as a human being who had discovered his true path. The reunion was not filled with reproach or bitterness. The young man, now a monk, rose and bowed to his parents with the deepest respect. He did not condemn them for their earlier opposition, nor did he gloat in his choice. He simply received them with love, with compassion, with patience. And as they listened to his teachings, as they witnessed his life, something within them shifted. They felt the truth not through words alone, but through the living example of their son. In time, The parents themselves took refuge in the Dharma. Their resentment dissolved, replaced by gratitude. They saw that what they had once viewed as a loss was in fact a profound blessing. By letting go of their son to the path he was called to, they too found their way toward wisdom. The very act they had resisted became the doorway to their own transformation. This story, though ancient, carries a truth that is timeless. Each person must walk their own path, and sometimes that path diverges from the hopes of those who love them. Parents dream of children following in their footsteps. Lovers imagine building a life that never changes. Friends cling to the idea of eternal companionship. Yet the reality is that each soul carries its own karmic journey, its own unfolding. To force another into a mold of our design is to steal from them the chance to live authentically. The story of this young man and his parents shows us that honoring another's unique path does not mean we cease to love them. It means we love them more deeply, with freedom instead of control. True love says, "I want you to find what brings you peace, even if it is not what I imagined for you." True love says, "I will release my grip because I trust that your path is yours to walk." This is not easy. It requires courage. It requires letting go of the illusion that another person exists to fulfill our script for life. But in releasing, we allow them to blossom, and sometimes, as in the story, their blossoming leads us too into awakening. For parents listening now, perhaps this story touches something tender. Perhaps you think of your own children, the choices they have made that you did not agree with, the roads they have walked that you would not have chosen. Let this story remind you, their lives are their own. You can guide, you can advise, you can love, but you cannot dictate. To do so is to place chains upon them, and those chains will break, bringing suffering to all. Instead, honor their freedom. Trust that the karma they carry will lead them through lessons they must learn, just as your karma has led you through yours. For children listening, perhaps you hear the echo of your parents' voices within you, the weight of their expectations, the fear of disappointing them. This story reminds you, respect them, honor them, love them, but do not lose yourself in trying to fulfill their dreams at the cost of your own awakening. The deepest act of love is not blind obedience, but the courage to live truthfully. And when you live truthfully, you offer your parents a gift greater than any worldly success, the gift of seeing you whole, authentic, awake. The Buddha never taught that family bonds should be severed. He taught that they should be seen in the light of reality. To cling, to control, to demand is to sow suffering. To honor, to love, to release is to open the way to liberation for all. The young man who became a monk did not abandon his parents. He carried them in his heart, and in time he offered them the greatest gift possible, the Dharma, the path to peace. So let us take this story to heart. Each of us has loved ones whose choices we do not understand. Each of us has felt the tension between expectation and reality. May we learn, like the parents in this story, to soften, to let go, to see our loved ones not as extensions of ourselves, but as fellow travelers. May we learn, like the young man, to walk our path with humility and love, even when it diverges from the wishes of others. And may we trust that in honoring each person's unique way, we weave a world where love is no longer a chain, but a set of wings. When you breathe tonight, reflect on this. Who in your life are you still holding in the cage of your expectations? Who have you demanded must live in a way that comforts you, rather than in a way that frees them? Write their names silently in your heart, and then whisper, "May you be free, may you be whole, may your path unfold as it must." In this letting go, you will feel not a loss, but a quiet expansion. You will discover that love, when freed from control, does not diminish. It deepens, it grows, it liberates. This is the lesson of the son who chose the Dharma and the parents who, through pain and patience, came to see his choice as their own salvation. It is a lesson for all of us. The path of each person is unique. We cannot walk it for them, but we can walk beside them in compassion, supporting them with open hearts. And when the time comes to part, we can release them with peace, knowing that love does not end with separation. Love, when rooted in wisdom, becomes the very ground upon which all paths unfold. Part 4. Applications in daily life. The stories we have heard are not distant echoes from another age, meant only for the monks and nuns of long ago. They are living mirrors, shining with lessons for us here and now, in the simple and complicated realities of our daily lives. The teaching that each person's path is unique is not a philosophy to admire from afar. It is a way of seeing, a way of loving, and a way of living that can soften our struggles and deepen our peace. Think of the relationship between parents and children. Parents often hold a dream in their hearts, sometimes even before the child is born. They imagine who the child will become, the achievements they will reach, the ways they will reflect honor upon the family. These dreams are born of love, but they are also born of attachment. When the child grows and chooses another path, perhaps a path of art instead of medicine, or simplicity instead of wealth, the parent feels betrayed. Yet the betrayal does not come from the child. It comes from the parent's own unwillingness to release the dream. The teaching of the Buddha invites us to loosen the grip, to remember that the child's life is their own. Just as a bird leaves the nest to fly into the open sky, so too must children follow the winds of their own karma. The most compassionate gift a parent can give is not a map of imposed directions, but wings strengthened with love and freedom. In partnerships, the same truth appears. A husband may long for his wife to remain as she was in the early days of love, always radiant, always attentive. A wife may long for her husband to stay youthful, strong, ambitious, always providing. Yet both are bound to change, as all things change. To demand that the other remain fixed is to demand the impossible. Love becomes brittle when it clings to what was, rather than embracing what is. The path of each person unfolds with age, with challenge, with growth. When love honors this unfolding, it becomes spacious and enduring. When love resists it, it becomes a chain. The Buddha's wisdom invites couples to meet each other anew in every season of life, not as static possessions, but as evolving companions. Friendships, too, carry this lesson. We may feel abandoned when a friend grows distant, when their life takes them into new work, new love, or new responsibilities. We may feel left behind, but to honor the uniqueness of their path is to recognize that they are not rejecting us. They are simply moving with the currents of their life. When we release our insistence that friendship must always look the same, we allow it to transform. Sometimes, friends walk closely, hand in hand. Sometimes, they walk apart, meeting again after years, the bond still intact, changed, yet alive. To trust this ebb and flow is to free ourselves from unnecessary pain. In the workplace, in communities, in every human connection, this truth applies. We often measure our worth by how others respond to us. If they praise us, we feel validated. If they criticize us, we feel diminished. But when we see that each person is moving through their own karmic lessons, We understand that their reactions say more about their journey than about our value. A harsh word may reflect their own suffering. A kind word may reflect their own moment of clarity. To depend entirely on these reflections is like trying to see ourselves in a broken mirror. The true mirror is within, in the stillness of our own awareness. Living this teaching in daily life requires practice. One practice is simply to notice when expectation arises. Perhaps you notice yourself thinking, "My child should be more successful," or "My partner should make me happy," or "My friend should always be there." Pause and breathe. Ask yourself gently, is this about them, or is this about me? Often we discover that our demand is not a truth about the other, but a fear within ourselves. By recognizing this, we can turn inward, soften, and release. Another practice is gratitude. When we recognize that nothing is guaranteed, that every loved one, every moment, every breath is impermanent, we begin to appreciate what is here right now. Instead of demanding that relationships fulfill our fantasies, we learn to say thank you for what they already are. Gratitude shifts the heart from clinging to cherishing. It allows us to love without fear, to enjoy without grasping. A further practice is reflection. The Buddha often encouraged his disciples to contemplate impermanence, not as a morbid exercise, but as a way of deepening love and wisdom. Tonight, you might take a piece of paper and write down 3 expectations you have placed on others. Perhaps you expect your partner always to agree with you. Perhaps you expect your child to live a certain lifestyle. Perhaps you expect your parent to give you the affection they have never known how to show. Write these expectations honestly, without judgment. Then sit quietly and ask, can I release this? Can I love them even if this expectation is not fulfilled? If the answer is yes, breathe deeply into that freedom. If the answer is not yet, breathe gently into that too, knowing that even the willingness to see the expectation is already the beginning of release. This reflection is not about abandoning relationships. It is about transforming them. To release expectation does not mean to stop caring. It means to care without chains. Imagine holding a flower. If you clutch it tightly, fearing it will be taken away, you crush its petals. If you hold it lightly, open-handed, you enjoy its fragrance and beauty while it lasts. In the same way, relationships flourish when held with lightness and respect. The Buddha's teaching also invites us to extend this understanding to ourselves. Just as we cannot walk the path for others, others cannot walk it for us. Sometimes, we hide behind expectations because we are afraid to face our own work. It feels easier to demand that a partner change, that a child succeed, that a friend behave differently, than to look at our own habits of mind. But the path of awakening is personal. No one else can practice for us. No one else can let go of our anger, our greed, our delusion. This is our task, our freedom, and our responsibility. So in daily life, when frustration arises with another, turn inward. Ask, what is being shown to me here? What is this moment teaching me about my own heart? In this way, every relationship becomes a mirror for self-understanding. Every disappointment becomes a chance to release. Every joy becomes a chance to give thanks. The people in our lives are not obstacles to awakening. They are the very ground of practice. By respecting their unique paths, we find our own. Perhaps you may wonder, does this mean we should never guide, never teach, never advise? The answer is more subtle. We can guide, we can advise, we can teach, but without attachment. We can plant seeds, but we must allow the soil and the season to determine how and when they grow. To impose our timeline, our control, is to invite suffering. To trust the unfolding of causes and conditions is to practice wisdom. Think again of the exercise, writing 3 expectations you have placed on others. After you write them, after you reflect on releasing them, you might also write 3 ways you can support those same people without expectation. Perhaps it is listening with patience. Perhaps it is offering encouragement without pressure. Perhaps it is simply being present, allowing them to feel free in your company. This shift, from controlling to supporting, from demanding to offering, is the heart of the application. It transforms relationships from prisons into places of refuge. As you practice these reflections, notice the effect on your own body and mind. The tightness in the chest, the heaviness in the heart, the restlessness in the mind. These are signs of clinging. When expectation is released, even slightly, there is a softening. Breath becomes easier, heart becomes lighter, mind becomes clearer. This is not imagination, it is the real taste of freedom. And when you experience it, even for a moment, you know why the Buddha spoke of non-attachment, not as loss, but as liberation. Over time, living with this awareness changes the way we relate to all of life. We no longer see others as possessions, nor ourselves as victims of their choices. We see life as a vast web of interconnected journeys, each being carrying their own karma, each path unique yet bound by the same laws of impermanence and cause and effect. This vision does not make us indifferent. It makes us humble, compassionate, and wise. The teaching that each person's path is unique calls us to live with open eyes, open hands, and open hearts. It calls us to let go of the illusion of control and to replace it with the strength of compassion. It calls us to see our loved ones as companions, not as possessions. And it calls us to practice, moment by moment, the art of release. So as we end this chapter, let us pause in silence together. Let us breathe deeply, feeling the rise and fall of the breath as a reminder of impermanence. Let us bring to mind the faces of those we love. Let us acknowledge the expectations we have placed on them. And then, with gentleness, let us whisper within, "May you be free. May you walk your path. May I love you without chains." In this prayer, in this release, the teaching becomes alive. The story of Patakara, the story of the young man who ordained, the Buddha's timeless words, all come together in the heart of our own experience. Each person's path is unique. Each step we take is our own. And in honoring this truth, we discover a love and freedom deeper than we ever imagined. You are listening to a gentle teaching from the Moonlight Temple series, wisdom drawn from ancient Buddhist roots, brought to life with care and presence. To fully receive the heart of these teachings, I invite you now to pause. Soften the edges of your day. Let your body rest. Take in a slow, quiet breath and exhale into stillness. Allow your awareness to return, not to the past, not to the future, but to this very moment. Nothing else is required. Just your presence. If this offering has brought you a moment of peace, we gently invite you to support this journey by subscribing to the Moonlight Temple, sharing these teachings, or simply returning again when your heart needs rest. Every small act of presence helps this temple of silence grow. Chapter 2. You cannot change others, only yourself. There is a truth we often resist, yet it meets us in every corner of our lives. We cannot change other people. We may try with all our strength, through persuasion, criticism, demands, or even anger, but in the end, Every person walks according to the conditions of their own heart and the weight of their own karma. What we can change, what we must change, is ourselves. The Buddha spoke clearly about karma. He taught that karma is the natural unfolding of causes and effects born from our own actions, words, and thoughts. It is deeply personal. Though we are all interconnected, each of us carries responsibility for our choices. A parent cannot practice on behalf of a child. A friend cannot purify the mind of another. A teacher cannot walk the path for the student. They can inspire, they can guide, they can shine light upon the road, but the walking must be done by the one whose feet touch the ground. So often, our suffering comes not from the way others act, but from our refusal to accept that we cannot control them. We believe, if only my partner were kinder, I would be happy. If only my child were obedient, I would feel at peace. If only my colleague respected me, life would be easier. We build our happiness on the shaky foundation of other people's behavior, forgetting that this foundation can never be stable. For how can it be? Others are moved by their own conditions, their own past actions, their own inner struggles. To demand they bend to our desires is to demand the river stop flowing or the wind stop blowing. The teaching is not meant to leave us powerless. On the contrary, it returns power to where it truly belongs, within ourselves. If we cannot change another's karma, we can work with our own. If we cannot command their behavior, we can cultivate patience, compassion, and understanding in our own hearts. In this way, relationships transform, not because we have forced others to change, but because we have changed the way we meet them. Think of the metaphor the Buddha once used. If someone offers you a gift and you do not take it, to whom does the gift belong? The same is true with anger, insult, or cruelty. If someone offers harsh words and we do not take them into our heart, those words remain with the giver. They do not wound us unless we open our hands to receive them. In this image lies the heart of self-mastery. We may not stop others from speaking, but we can choose how to meet their speech. We may not stop the storm from forming, but we can choose whether to stand in the rain or seek shelter in the stillness of our own awareness. The teaching of self-transformation is also the teaching of freedom. When we shift our focus from trying to fix others to cultivating our own wisdom, a new spaciousness opens. We no longer wait for the world to align before we can feel peace. We discover that peace is available here, in this very breath, in this very step, if only we return to ourselves. We no longer need to hold the strings of others like puppets, pulling them to dance for our happiness. We cut those strings and find that we can dance freely ourselves. In families, this truth is most tender. Parents may dream of molding children into their image, yet children carry their own seeds, their own tendencies, their own destinies. To demand they live exactly as we wish is to plant a rose seed and demand it become a lotus. The wise parent waters the seed that is truly there, guiding with love, but respecting the nature of the child. The same applies to partners in love. To marry or commit is not to take possession, it is to walk side by side. When differences arise, the temptation is to insist the other change. But lasting harmony comes when each person looks inward. Am I embodying the qualities I wish to see? Am I patient, gentle, generous? When one partner softens, the whole atmosphere softens. This is not easy, because the habit of blaming others is deeply ingrained. The mind finds comfort in pointing outward. It is their fault, not mine. But every time we point outward, we abandon the one place where true change is possible, our own heart. The Buddha did not tell us to ignore injustice or remain silent in the face of harm. He told us to see clearly, to act wisely, and to understand that our own mind is the source of our freedom. To change ourselves is not passivity. It is the most active, courageous work we can do. Imagine the world if every person truly understood this. Conflicts between nations, between neighbors, between families would soften. Instead of each side demanding the other yield, each side would ask, "What in me needs to be transformed? What can I release? How can I meet this situation with wisdom instead of anger?" Peace begins not with the other, but with ourselves. There is a tenderness in this teaching, because it requires humility. It requires us to admit that we are not the masters of others' destinies. It requires us to accept that those we love may choose paths we do not approve of, and that our role is not to control, but to support. This humility is not weakness. It is strength, because it aligns us with truth, and truth always carries us closer to freedom. As you listen, reflect on your own life. Can you recall a time you tried desperately to change someone else? Perhaps you pleaded, perhaps you argued, perhaps you used silence or anger. Did it bring the result you hoped for, or did it deepen the distance? Now recall a time when you turned inward, when you softened yourself, when you met the other not with force but with patience. What happened then? Often, it is our own shift that creates the space for others to shift as well. This is the paradox. When we stop demanding others change, they often change more easily. Not because we have controlled them, but because our acceptance frees them to grow. The Buddha's teaching is simple yet profound. Clean your own heart, and the world becomes clearer. The dirt you see on others may only be the dirt on your own window. Polish your window, and suddenly the light shines more brightly. Work on yourself, and suddenly others seem kinder, gentler, more open. Whether they have changed or not is less important, because you now meet them with new eyes. This is the invitation. Do not waste energy trying to force the world into your shape. Instead, shape yourself into one who can walk peacefully in the world as it is. Do not demand that others carry your burdens or meet your needs before you can be free. Instead, release what can be released, cultivate what can be cultivated, and discover the freedom that was waiting within you all along. The river flows, the wind blows. People act according to their karma. You cannot control these things, but you can learn to swim with the river, to walk with the wind, to meet people with compassion rather than demand. In this way, every encounter becomes practice, every disappointment becomes teaching, every relationship becomes a temple of awakening. So as you breathe gently now, let this truth sink deeper. You cannot change others. You can only change yourself. And in changing yourself, you change the way you experience the world. This is the heart of responsibility. This is the heart of freedom. And this is the beginning of true peace. The story of the quarreling crows. There is a story from the old traditions, told not with judgment, but with a gentle reminder about the way we often live our lives. It is the story of two crows, a pair who shared a nest high in a tree. Like many beings, they wanted nothing more than to live together in safety and to provide for their young. Yet, instead of peace, their days were filled with quarrels. Each morning, the husband crow would leave the nest in search of food. He flew across fields and villages, scavenging what he could find. When he returned, often with scraps and small bits, the wife crow would complain. "Is this all you bring? How will we feed our chicks with so little? You are lazy, you are careless, You should do more." Her words were sharp, cutting into his heart. He, in turn, would not accept her criticism in silence. "And what of you?" he would retort. "You stay here all day in the nest. You do nothing but sit. You cannot even protect our home properly. If a predator comes, you are helpless. You are useless." Back and forth they went, day after day, blaming, criticizing, accusing. Each believed the other was at fault for their struggles. Each felt the weight of disappointment and directed it outward. The wife told herself that if only her husband were stronger, braver, more resourceful, all would be well. The husband told himself that if only his wife were more supportive, more competent, more gentle, life would be easier. Neither paused to look within. Neither asked, "What is my part in this unhappiness? What can I change in myself?" Their nest, once a place of shelter, grew heavy with the energy of conflict. The young crows trembled as their parents shouted at one another. The air grew tense, the love that had once united them buried beneath piles of resentment. And then, one day, as they argued more fiercely than ever, their voices echoing across the trees, a shadow passed overhead. Neither of them noticed. Neither of them lifted their eyes to the sky. They were too absorbed in their battle of blame. In that moment, an eagle swooped down. With talons sharp and swift, it seized them both, ending their quarrel in an instant. Their young were left alone, the nest abandoned, the promise of family undone. The story closes there, stark and sobering. But its meaning carries far beyond the fate of those crows. The lesson is not about punishment. It is not about doom. It is about the truth of our lives. When we lose ourselves in the habit of blaming others, when we spend our energy demanding they change while refusing to look at our own hearts, we create suffering. We make our relationships fragile. We invite loss, not because of fate alone, but because our blindness keeps us from seeing the dangers that grow around us. How many of us live as the crows did? A husband and wife locked in endless cycles of complaint, each insisting the other is the cause of unhappiness. Parents and children clashing, each certain the other is unreasonable. Friends growing distant, each blaming the other for not being attentive enough. In these moments, we are like the crows, too busy defending our pride to notice the eagle circling overhead. The eagle may not always be death. It may be the slow death of intimacy, the erosion of trust, the collapse of love. And when it arrives, we wonder how it happened. Yet, deep down, we know it was not only the eagle, it was also the blindness of our constant blame. The Buddha's teaching speaks to this so directly. He tells us that each person's karma is their own, that each mind must be purified from within. To spend our lives trying to reform others is like trying to wash another's face while ignoring the dirt on our own. We become obsessed with their faults, blind to our own habits of greed, anger, or ignorance. And in this blindness, we perpetuate the very suffering we long to escape. The story of the crows reminds us to pause. Before the words of accusation leave our lips, before the thoughts of blame harden in our minds, we can ask, what is my part in this? What can I change in myself to bring more peace? Perhaps the husband crow could have asked, am I doing my best? Can I bring food with more care? Not only scraps, but what is truly nourishing? Perhaps the wife crow could have asked, am I encouraging him? Am I protecting our home with patience and faith? If either had chosen to reflect inward rather than lash outward, perhaps the eagle would not have found them so vulnerable. This is the heart of the teaching. Responsibility begins with oneself. In a family, when one person changes sincerely, the entire atmosphere shifts. A harsh tone replaced by a gentle one can disarm anger. A patient silence can dissolve conflict more quickly than 1,000 accusations. A smile offered in place of resentment can heal wounds that words alone cannot. We wait for the other to act first, telling ourselves, if they soften, I will soften. But wisdom whispers another way. If I soften, perhaps they too will soften. The story also points us toward the fragility of time. Life is uncertain. We do not know how many days we have with those we love. To spend them quarreling, demanding, blaming, is to waste the precious gift of our shared existence. The crows thought they had more time. They thought their quarrels were harmless, that tomorrow they could reconcile. But tomorrow did not come. The eagle came instead. And so it is with us. The unpredictability of life is the reason to let go of blame now, not later. To practice humility now, not someday. To choose compassion now, because we do not know when the chance will slip away. Listen softly to this story again, not as a tale of birds, but as a reflection of the human heart. How many nests have been broken, not by predators from outside, but by the constant quarrels within? How many children have grown in households filled not with love but with blame, carrying the wounds into their own futures? How many friendships have ended not because of distance or fate, but because of the refusal to release small resentments? The eagle is never far, waiting for our inattention, but the story also contains hope, because unlike the crows, we have the capacity to awaken before it is too late. We can recognize the pattern of blame and choose another way. We can turn inward, practicing the art of self-transformation. We can clean our own hearts, soften our own speech, cultivate our own patience, and when we do, the nest becomes strong again, the air becomes clear, love can breathe once more. Imagine a household where blame is replaced with reflection. A wife notices her frustration rising, and instead of hurling accusations, she breathes and asks, "What is happening in me right now? Why am I unsettled?" A husband feels criticized, and instead of retaliating, he pauses and says, "I hear your pain. Let me try to understand." Children watch this, and they learn not the art of quarrel, but the art of compassion. Such a home becomes a place of refuge, not a battlefield. The eagle still circles in the sky, but the nest is strong because those within it are not distracted by endless blame. The story of the quarreling crows is simple, but it is not simplistic. It speaks to the core of human life. We want happiness, yet we sabotage it with blame. We want peace, yet we destroy it with anger. We want love, yet we bury it under expectations. The Buddha invites us to awaken, to see that the way out is not through changing the other, but through changing ourselves. The crow, who blamed his wife, could have chosen to work harder with patience. The wife who blamed her husband could have chosen to encourage him with gentleness. Either could have broken the cycle, but neither did, and the eagle came. As you reflect on this story, perhaps an image arises of someone in your own life you have quarreled with. Perhaps you hear again the words of blame you have spoken, or the words you have received. Let this story remind you that there is another way. You need not wait for the eagle to arrive. You can soften now, you can pause, you can ask, "What can I change in myself?" And in doing so, you may save not only the nest of your relationship, but also the peace of your own heart. The crows teach us not through wisdom, but through their mistake. Their tragedy becomes our lesson. May we honor it by choosing differently. May we honor it by releasing blame and embracing responsibility. May we honor it by remembering that the time we have with one another is precious, fleeting, and not to be wasted in quarrel. So as we sit quietly, Let us breathe in the image of the nest. Let us see ourselves within it. See those we love beside us. Let us imagine the eagle circling, a reminder of impermanence. And then let us choose. Will we spend these moments blaming, or will we spend them cultivating peace? The choice is ours. The story has been told. The lesson is clear. The time is now. You are listening to a gentle teaching from the Moonlight Temple series, wisdom drawn from ancient Buddhist roots, brought to life with care and presence. To fully receive the heart of these teachings, I invite you now to pause, soften the edges of your day, let your body rest, take in a slow, quiet breath, and exhale into stillness. Allow your awareness to return, not to the past, not to the future, but to this very moment. Nothing else is required, just your presence. If this offering has brought you a moment of peace, we gently invite you to support this journey by subscribing to the Moonlight Temple, sharing these teachings, or simply returning again when your heart needs rest. Every small act of presence helps this temple of silence grow. Part 3. The Teacher and the Student in the Forest. There is a story told in the old Buddhist tradition about a teacher and his student who were walking together through a forest. The day was quiet, the path winding between tall trees whose leaves whispered softly in the wind. The teacher walked calmly, his breath steady, his steps unhurried. The student followed close behind, his heart filled with devotion, eager to learn, eager to embody the wisdom he had heard. As they walked, they came across a man on the path. This man, perhaps troubled in his own life, perhaps carrying wounds that had never healed, began to hurl insults at the teacher. His words were sharp, harsh, and cruel. He mocked the teacher's appearance, ridiculed his robe, questioned his worth. The student froze, his face burning with anger. He could not believe that anyone would speak to his beloved teacher in such a way. The student expected the teacher to respond. He thought perhaps the teacher would correct the man, or defend himself, or at least show some sign of being offended. But to his astonishment, the teacher continued walking, his face serene, his eyes soft, his breath unchanged. It was as if the insults had passed through the air without ever landing. The student could not contain himself. After the man had stormed away, he cried out, "Master, how can you allow such disrespect? Why did you not respond? Why did you not show him his rudeness? Your silence makes me burn inside." The teacher paused, turning gently to face his student. His expression was kind, not stern. He asked a simple question. If someone offers you a gift and you do not take it, to whom does the gift belong? The student blinked, confused. If I do not take it, it still belongs to the one who tried to give it, he answered slowly. The teacher nodded. Exactly so. That man offered me his anger, his insults, his disrespect. I did not take them. They remain with him. Why should I burden myself with what was never mine? The student's anger softened as the words sank in. He realized that his own pain had not come from the man's insults, but from his belief that those insults must be received. He had taken them into his heart, though they were never meant for him. The teacher, in his wisdom, had simply left the gift unopened, untouched, unclaimed. This story carries a teaching we can all use. In our daily lives, people will speak harshly. They will misunderstand us, criticize us, or even try to harm us with words. Often, we rush to defend ourselves, to prove them wrong, to return insult with insult. But in doing so, we carry a weight that was never ours. We accept a gift we did not need to accept. We fill our hands with poison when we could have left them empty and free. The Buddha often reminded his followers that the mind is like a field, and whatever seeds are planted there will grow. If we allow others' anger to enter, we plant seeds of anger within ourselves. If we allow their hatred to take root, hatred grows in our own heart. But if we refuse the gift, if we let their words pass like wind through the trees, then no seed is planted. Our field remains clear, ready for seeds of compassion, patience, and wisdom. To live in this way is not indifference. It is not weakness. It is strength of the highest kind. It takes courage to remain calm when others attack. It takes deep training to hold the mind steady when the storm of anger blows. But this is the path of liberation. This is the way of peace. We can reflect on our own lives. How many times have we carried the burden of others' words? Perhaps someone insulted us years ago, and still we repeat those words in our minds, allowing them to wound us again and again. The person who spoke them may have long forgotten, yet we clutch their gift tightly, reopening it each day, suffering anew. What would happen if we simply set it down? What freedom would we discover if we said, "These words are not mine, they belong to the one who spoke them. I choose not to carry them." This teaching also extends beyond insults. Sometimes, people offer us their expectations, their judgments, their demands. They may try to shape our lives according to their vision. If we accept everything they give, we lose ourselves, weighed down by burdens that are not truly ours. But if we discern wisely, we can accept what is helpful and let go of what is harmful. We can say, "Thank you for the gift you offer, but I will not take what does not serve truth or kindness." The story of the teacher and the student in the forest also shows us the contrast between wisdom and habit. The student reacted with fire because his love for his teacher was mixed with pride and attachment. He felt that the insult diminished the teacher's dignity, and by extension, his own. But the teacher was free from such pride. He knew that dignity is not defined by the words of others. True dignity arises from inner clarity, from a heart untouchable by praise or blame. The Buddha himself experienced this countless times. People insulted him, doubted him, even plotted against him. Yet he remained calm because he understood the nature of the mind. He knew that to respond with anger would only add fuel to the fire. He chose instead the path of compassion, recognizing that those who insult are themselves suffering. Their harshness is a reflection of their inner pain. To meet pain with more pain is to multiply suffering. To meet pain with patience and compassion is to begin healing. Imagine walking through a forest when a branch falls in your path. Would you become angry at the tree? Would you shout at it and demand that it behave differently? No, you would simply step around it, understanding that the tree is just being a tree, that the branch fell because of wind or time or weight. In the same way, when someone insults us, we can see that they are simply expressing the conditions within them. Their words arise from causes we may not see, their upbringing, their struggles, their wounds. To take their anger personally is to misunderstand. To meet it with compassion is to walk wisely around the fallen branch. This does not mean we must accept abuse or remain in harmful situations. Wisdom also means knowing when to protect ourselves, when to create distance, when to say no. But even then, we can do so without hatred. We can act firmly yet with clarity, without taking the poison into our own hearts. The practice begins with small things. When someone cuts us off in traffic, instead of reacting with rage, we can breathe and say, "May you be safe." When a colleague criticizes our work unfairly, we can pause and ask, What is the pain behind these words? When a loved one speaks harshly in a moment of stress, we can choose patience instead of retaliation. Each time we refuse the gift of anger, we strengthen our own freedom. Each time we lay down the burden of others' words, we walk more lightly on our path. The teacher in the forest showed his student a way of living that is both simple and profound. By not taking what was never his, he remained free. By not responding to anger with anger, he broke the chain of suffering. The student learned that his own pain came not from the insult itself, but from his choice to accept it. And in seeing this, he too began to understand the power of self-mastery. We can carry this lesson into our own lives. The next time harsh words come your way, remember the question: if someone offers you a gift and you do not take it, to whom does the gift belong? Let this wisdom soften your heart. Let it remind you that you are free to choose what you carry. You are free to let go. In this freedom lies profound peace. In this freedom lies the path of the Buddha, not the path of controlling others, not the path of demanding they change, but the path of changing ourselves, our responses, our habits, our hearts. And when we change ourselves, we discover that the world around us changes too, not because others have been forced, but because we now see with clear eyes and walk with light steps. So let us pause together now. Breathe gently. Bring to mind a time when someone insulted you or spoke harshly. Notice how it felt, how you carried it, how it lingered. And now imagine placing that gift back into their hands, saying silently, "This is not mine to carry." Feel the lightness that follows, the space that opens. This is the gift of letting go. This is the freedom of choosing not to receive what was never yours. And as we practice this, again and again, we become like the teacher in the forest, calm, steady, compassionate, untouchable by praise or blame. We walk through life with open hands, taking only what nourishes, releasing what harms, carrying only what leads to peace. This is the path. This is the way. Part 4. Applications in daily life. The teachings and stories we have heard are not meant to remain on dusty scrolls or in the distant echoes of monasteries long ago. They are alive, here, waiting to be woven into the fabric of our everyday lives. They are not abstract ideals. They are practical truths. They call to us in the midst of family conversations, in the moments of misunderstanding with partners, in the quiet struggles of parenting, and in the countless small encounters we share with others. If we understand them deeply, they can transform the way we live and love. Let us begin with the family. Parents often long for their children to listen, to obey, to fulfill their hopes. And yet, children are not extensions of their parents. They are beings with their own karma, their own path, their own destiny. If a parent tries to force the child into a mold, insisting, "You must do as I say, you must become what I want," then tension and resentment arise. The child resists, the parent pushes harder, and both suffer. But when a parent turns inward and asks, "Am I living as the example I wish my child to follow?" something shifts. A parent who embodies patience, kindness, and integrity teaches more powerfully than one who merely demands. Children learn not from commands alone, but from the living presence of those around them. The Buddha once said that the best gift a parent can give is to train themselves in virtue and wisdom. This is because the atmosphere of a home is created by the hearts of those who live within it. If a parent cultivates calm, the home becomes calm. If a parent practices compassion, the home becomes a refuge of love. Even when a child struggles or resists, They are breathing in that atmosphere. Over time, it shapes them more than any lecture or punishment could. The parent may not see immediate results, but seeds are planted, and seeds grow according to their own time. In partnerships, the same truth blossoms. Many people enter relationships hoping to find someone who will complete them, who will fill the gaps in their own heart. But no partner can carry that burden forever. When disappointment arises, we often turn outward, demanding that the other change. If only you were more attentive. If only you were more affectionate. If only you were different. But these demands create pressure, and love wilts under pressure. Imagine instead if, when frustration arises, we ask ourselves, am I bringing the gentleness I want to receive? Am I practicing the attentiveness I long for? A partner who wants more kindness must embody kindness. A partner who longs for softness must cultivate softness within. When we change ourselves, the relationship changes too. Even if the other does not transform immediately, the energy between us shifts. The space becomes safer, calmer, more open. Often, this inspires the other to soften in return. Love then becomes not a negotiation of demands, but a shared practice of growth. Think also of friendships. Friends may sometimes let us down. They may forget to call, may fail to show up, may seem distracted or distant. The easy reaction is blame. They are careless. They do not value me. They must do better. But if we pause and reflect inward, we may see another possibility. Am I reaching out with the warmth I want to receive? Am I offering presence without conditions? Am I willing to accept that my friend is walking through struggles I cannot see? By shifting from accusation to compassion, we not only preserve the friendship, we deepen it. The friend may not change, but our heart changes, and in that change, the bond transforms. This practice also extends into the workplace, where misunderstandings and tensions are common. Perhaps a colleague speaks sharply, or a supervisor criticizes harshly. Our first impulse is often defense or anger. But what if we use the moment to reflect inward? Am I expecting them to be the source of my peace? Am I giving them the power to define my worth? If we realize that peace arises from our own clarity, not from their behavior, we free ourselves. We can then respond with professionalism, even kindness, without carrying their negativity in our hearts. In this way, the workplace becomes not just a place of labor, but a ground for practice. The practice of turning inward instead of outward requires mindfulness. It requires us to notice when blame arises, when expectation hardens, when anger seeks to escape through words. These are the moments to pause, to breathe, to ask, what is happening within me right now? What can I change in myself? The pause is not weakness, it is power. It breaks the chain of reaction. It creates a space where wisdom can enter. The Buddha encouraged reflection, exercises to help us embody this truth. One practice you can try is this. Each day, set aside 5 quiet minutes. Close your eyes. Breathe slowly. Bring to mind someone close to you, your child, your partner, your friend. Ask yourself honestly, am I trying to force this person to live according to my script? Am I pushing them to be what I want, instead of allowing them to be who they are? Do not judge yourself for the answer. Simply notice. Then gently imagine loosening your grip, like unclenching a fist. Whisper silently, may you be free, may you walk your path, may I find peace in changing myself. If you practice this daily, you will begin to notice changes. Your conversations will soften, your demands will lessen, your heart will open. You will discover that the world becomes lighter when you stop carrying the burden of trying to control it. And those around you may feel more free, more loved, more supported. They may change in their own way, but whether they do or not, you will have already transformed. The path of changing oneself instead of demanding change from others is not always easy. It requires humility. It requires patience. It requires the courage to face our own habits of mind. But it is the only path that truly works, because we cannot walk another person's path. We can only walk our own. And when we walk it with awareness, compassion, and integrity, we create ripples that touch everyone around us. Consider water again. When you throw a stone into a pond, ripples spread outward. In the same way, when you cultivate peace within yourself, that peace touches your family, your friends, your colleagues, even strangers you meet. You may not realize it, but your calm presence can soothe a child. Your gentle voice can ease a conflict. Your patience can prevent an argument. These are the ripples of self-transformation. You may not change others directly, but your being becomes an environment in which change can naturally arise. This teaching is also a reminder of impermanence. Life is brief, fragile, uncertain. To spend it entangled in demands that others must change is to waste precious time. Better to spend it polishing our own hearts, cultivating our own virtues, planting seeds of love wherever we walk. In this way, when the end comes, we can look back without regret, knowing we lived with clarity and kindness. So let us take this teaching into our daily lives, not as a burden, but as a gift. Let us see every quarrel as an invitation to look within. Let us see every disappointment as a mirror of our own expectations. Let us see every relationship as a field for practice, where we learn again and again the art of patience, the art of compassion, the art of release. And let us not forget the simple exercise. 5 minutes of quiet reflection. 5 minutes to ask, am I trying to change others, or am I willing to change myself? In those 5 minutes, we return to the heart of the Buddha's wisdom. In those 5 minutes, we water the seeds of peace. In those 5 minutes, we discover that freedom is always here, waiting in our own breath, in our own mind, in our own choice to release what does not serve. As we close this chapter, let us breathe together. Inhale gently, feeling the air fill your lungs. Exhale slowly, feeling the body soften. Bring to mind someone in your life with whom you struggle. See them clearly. Feel your expectations of them, and then, with compassion, release. Whisper silently, I do not need to change you. I will change myself. May you be free. May I be free. This is the way forward. Not the way of control, but the way of compassion. Not the way of blame, but the way of responsibility. Not the way of changing others, but the way of changing ourselves. And in walking this way, we find that the world itself begins to change, because we are seeing it through the clear, gentle eyes of awakening. You are listening to a gentle teaching from the Moonlight Temple series, wisdom drawn from ancient Buddhist roots, brought to life with care and presence. To fully receive the heart of these teachings, I invite you now to pause, soften the edges of your day, let your body rest, take in a slow, quiet breath, and exhale into stillness. Allow your awareness to return, not to the past, not to the future, but to this very moment. Nothing else is required, just your presence. If this offering has brought you a moment of peace, we gently invite you to support this journey by subscribing to the Moonlight Temple, sharing these teachings, or simply returning again when your heart needs rest. Every small act of presence helps this temple of silence grow. Chapter 3. Love with Wisdom. Love is one of the most powerful forces in human life. It is what binds parents to children, partners to one another, friends to friends, communities to communities. Without love, life would feel empty and barren. And yet, love alone, when untempered by wisdom, can sometimes cause harm. What we call love can become clinging, possession, control. What we call care can become suffocation. What we call devotion can become blindness. That is why the Buddha did not teach only compassion, but compassion joined with wisdom. He taught that true love must be free from attachment, free from the need to own or control, free to honor the unique journey of every being. Compassion, or karuna, and loving kindness, or metta, are radiant qualities of the awakened heart. But the Buddha also emphasized panya, wisdom, as their guiding light. Compassion without wisdom may lead us to cling, to give in ways that drain us or entrap others. Wisdom without compassion can become cold, detached, unfeeling. But together, compassion and wisdom form a love that is boundless yet balanced, tender yet discerning. The Buddha often spoke of this in his teachings. He explained that suffering arises not simply from love, but from attachment within love. We cling to those we care about, demanding they make us happy, demanding they remain unchanged, demanding they fulfill our desires. When they cannot or do not, we suffer, and we often blame them. But the suffering is not caused by love itself. It is caused by our lack of wisdom in love. When love is purified by wisdom, it no longer imprisons, it liberates. It no longer binds with chains of fear. It opens with wings of freedom. Consider the difference between holding and grasping. To hold a child gently is love with wisdom. To clutch them tightly, insisting they never leave our side, is attachment disguised as love. To walk beside a partner with respect and encouragement is love with wisdom. To demand they act only in ways that please us is attachment disguised as love. To care for a friend with kindness without expecting anything in return is love with wisdom. To expect constant affirmation or repayment is attachment disguised as love. Wisdom in love recognizes impermanence. It knows that those we love will change, grow, and one day die. Instead of denying this, wisdom embraces it, allowing us to cherish the time we have without clinging to illusions of forever. Wisdom in love recognizes individuality. It sees that each person carries their own karma, their own lessons, their own path. Instead of forcing them to live according to our script, wisdom honors their freedom. Wisdom in love also recognizes balance. It knows that to give endlessly without care for our own well-being is not true compassion. It is imbalance. Wisdom teaches us to love in a way that sustains, not destroys, both ourselves and others. This union of love and wisdom can be seen as a kind of spiritual maturity. When we are young in our hearts, we may mistake attachment for love. We may think, if I cannot live without you, that must mean I love you deeply. But the Buddha would gently remind us that true love is not dependency. True love is the wish for the other's well-being, even if it does not align with our desires. It is the prayer, may you be happy, may you be free, even if their freedom means they walk another road. The challenge is that attachment often feels natural. Parents want to protect their children, partners want to hold each other close, friends want to be cherished. These desires are not wrong, they are human, but without wisdom, they turn into control. A parent may suffocate a child with expectations. A partner may imprison the other with jealousy. A friend may burden the bond with constant demands. When wisdom is present, however, these same relationships become spacious. Parents encourage rather than control. Partners trust rather than cling. Friends support rather than demand. The Buddha gave a beautiful image to describe this. He said that just as a mother loves her only child, so too should we cultivate a boundless heart of loving kindness for all beings. But notice, he did not say that a mother should cling to her child, or that her happiness should depend entirely on what the child does. He pointed to the quality of boundless love, love that is vast, protective, and unconditional, not limited by possession or demand. To practice such love requires wisdom. It requires us to step beyond self-centered desire and into selfless care. When we combine compassion with wisdom, we discover a new kind of strength. We no longer fear loss in the same way, because we know that love is not diminished by change. We no longer fear giving, because we know that true giving nourishes rather than depletes. We no longer fear freedom, because we know that love flourishes in openness, not in chains. This teaching does not mean that love will never hurt. To love is to open ourselves, and with openness comes vulnerability. We may still feel sorrow when loved ones suffer, or grief when they pass away. But when love is guided by wisdom, sorrow does not turn into despair. Grief does not turn into bitterness. We allow ourselves to feel deeply, but we also allow ourselves to release. We honor both the beauty of connection and the truth of impermanence. For those living in the modern world, this teaching is especially relevant. In a culture that often equates love with possession, we are taught to hold on tightly, to measure our worth by who loves us and how much. We are told that to let go is failure, that to release is to stop caring. But the Buddha's wisdom invites us to see otherwise. To let go is not to stop loving, it is to love more wisely. To release is not to abandon, it is to respect. To step back is not to withdraw, it is to give space for growth. Imagine a garden. If you love a flower, wisdom teaches you to water it, to provide sunlight, to protect it from harm. But wisdom also teaches you not to clutch at its petals, not to demand it bloom according to your timeline. You cannot pull the bud open with force, you can only nurture it and wait. In the same way, when we love others, wisdom teaches us to nourish and support, not to control and demand. We create conditions for their growth, but we do not dictate the shape it must take. The union of love and wisdom is perhaps the deepest teaching of the Buddha's path. It is not only about our relationships with others, but also our relationship with ourselves. Too often, we are harsh with ourselves, demanding perfection, criticizing our flaws, measuring ourselves against impossible standards. We may even think this harshness is necessary, a sign of discipline. But without wisdom, this is just self-attachment disguised as care. True self-love with wisdom is gentle, patient, encouraging. It allows us to grow at our own pace, to make mistakes, to learn. It is the inner voice that says, "May I be well, may I be free, may I find peace," without judgment. The Buddha's path is sometimes called the middle way. Love with wisdom is the middle way of the heart. It avoids the extremes of clinging on one side and indifference on the other. It is not cold detachment, nor is it suffocating attachment. It is a balance that honors both connection and freedom. It is a balance that allows love to be strong, enduring, and liberating. So as we enter this chapter, let us remember, love alone is not enough. it must be joined with wisdom. Without wisdom, love can turn into a cage. With wisdom, love becomes a path to freedom. Without wisdom, love can exhaust us. With wisdom, love becomes inexhaustible. Without wisdom, love can blind us. With wisdom, love becomes the clearest vision of all. Let us carry this truth gently into our hearts, preparing to see it illustrated in the stories that follow. For stories are not only tales from long ago, they are mirrors reflecting our own lives. They help us see how the teaching lives and breathes in the choices of people across time. The story of a king and his son, the story of a poor woman with a lamp, each will show us that love guided by wisdom endures, shines, and liberates. But before we hear those stories, let us pause, let us breathe, let us whisper silently to ourselves and to those we love. May you be free. May I be free. May our love be wise. Part 2. The story of the king and the prince. Long ago, in a kingdom whose palaces gleamed with gold and whose gardens overflowed with flowers, there lived a king who loved his son more than anything else in the world. From the day the prince was born, the king's heart was filled with joy. He looked upon the boy and thought, "This is my legacy. He will carry my name, inherit my throne, and rule this land after I am gone." The king's love was fierce, but it was love without wisdom. It was love tangled with attachment, expectation, and fear. As the prince grew, he was surrounded by comfort and luxury. He had fine clothes, the best teachers, music and poetry, feasts and festivals. Yet, despite all of this, the young prince felt a restlessness in his heart. He looked beyond the palace walls and saw the suffering of his people. He saw sickness, old age, and death. He felt the truth of impermanence pressing upon him. A deep longing arose within him, a longing not for wealth or power, but for truth, for peace, for liberation. One day, the prince approached his father with great respect and bowed low before him. "Father," he said softly, "I love you. I honor you, but my heart does not yearn for the throne. My heart yearns for the path of awakening. I wish to leave the palace and seek the Dharma." The king's face darkened. His heart, full of attachment, could not accept these words. "Nonsense," he declared. "You are my only son, my heir. You will rule after me. You will protect this kingdom, continue our lineage, honor our ancestors. You speak of abandoning all of this for a wandering life of poverty? That is not love. That is betrayal." The prince bowed again. "It is not betrayal, father. It is truth. The throne cannot protect me from sickness, old age, and death. Wealth cannot shield me from impermanence. My heart cannot find peace in power. Please understand, my seeking is not against you. It is for all beings." But the king's mind was clouded. He thought love meant possession. He thought care meant control. In his fear of losing his son, he tried to bind him tighter. He forbade him to leave the palace. He increased the pleasures surrounding him, filling his days with music, with games, with distractions. He hoped that if the prince tasted enough sweetness, he would forget the deeper hunger within. Yet the prince could not forget. The truth within him was too strong. Every song only reminded him of silence. Every game only reminded him of the seriousness of life. Every luxury only reminded him of the suffering outside the palace walls. His longing grew, until one night, under a sky filled with stars, he made his decision. He kissed his sleeping wife and child, bowed silently toward his father's chamber, and left the palace to begin his search for awakening. When the king awoke to the news, his grief was boundless. He felt betrayed, abandoned, enraged. "How could my son leave me?" he cried. "How could he turn away from the life I prepared for him?" His love, which had been tangled with possession, turned to sorrow and anger. For years, he carried this pain.